Welcome to 20 Minute Tabletop, a podcast sharing the love of all things tabletop gaming in bite-sized pieces. Today is Friday with Friends, where we sit down with creators from the world of tabletop and have a friendly little chat, which you're invited to. I'm your host, John Wicke, here today with my co-host Stevie, and our special guests, Rick and Erik from Storytellers Forge. So pull up a chair, grab your spot on the couch, and let's chat. So first, why don't you introduce yourselves to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourselves and where you work on.
All right, Erik, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Rick. This is your baby, right?
All right, fine. I'm Rick Hines. I write sarcastic things about dead things. I'm a novelist, author. Worked for Geek and Sundry for years, but eventually at some point decided to corral a bunch of creatives together and make Storytellers Forge Studios, where we try to make epic TTRPGs infused with metal music and soundtracks.
I'm Erik Frankhouse. I am a full-time broadcaster, paid GM, work as a cartographer, illustrator, and designer for tabletop RPGs. Came from the video game industry and been working with Rick here for the last year on and off of this project, and we're ready to launch this baby.
So you just mentioned you have that Kickstarter coming up, Black Ballad Second Chances, that launches March 17th. Do you want to tell us and our listeners what that is all about?
Rick and I at a convention deciding that this needed to be converted to Shadowdark. And by we, I mean, Rick, let me tell you why this should be part of Shadowdark.
Many glass of whiskey later, Erik has managed to convince me that Shadowdark was really, really awesome. And after looking at it, we had the Black Ballad already existing as a world, which is the perfect game to run after you TPK your party. It was our flagship product that we decided to make a setting that every storyteller, every gaming group should have on their bookshelf for when the inevitable happens. Because let's be real, adventuring is dangerous no matter what game system you're in. And since we write narrative and storylines, Erik took one look at it and was like, this needs to be in Shadowdark. Ergo, what started as a very small project to make it a conversion ended up becoming a full boutique design suite to make an entire supplement and splat book that we ended up doing custom to Shadowdark.
It's definitely a toolkit. It's made for you to be able to use over and over again. I mean, it comes with all the things you expect in a Shadowdark book: new ancestries, new classes, even two new game modes, and then like an infinitely repeatable adventure. So it's a tool book and something that lets you take 5e Shadowdark or sorry, I should say 5e Black Ballad and bring it to Shadowdark. But it was fun to do and challenging because there's only 10 levels in Shadowdark and there's 20 in 5e, and Black Ballad is that kind of like beginning high level play where you can scale it down. So it was some work to make this one happen.
Yeah, I just love that concept from Black Ballad of like what happens after death is such a cool idea, and you have, like I said, you already had that setting and campaign existing, but like why Shadowdark? What drew you into that specifically from that system?
I think Erik and I both had two completely different things that drew us to it. For me, it was taking a look at the Black Ballad. The original Black Ballad book was a storyline and a campaign, right? And there was some setting material there, but it really was placing the consequences of resurrection magic in your player's hands, right? If a king can bring himself back from the dead for 100 gold pieces, why would the world ever need to change? Because he would never need to change his behavior. There's no consequence for anything. And Shadowdark is all about consequences and that mood and that light going out and the sort of more difficult exploration crawl. We could do completely different storylines, completely new adventures in our setting that naturally lent itself to the game system. And it really started clicking to me when Erik started showing me how they design adventures in Shadowdark, which was a real treat to write, using some of the tables and things like that. And that sort of open exploration that still gives the storytellers all of the tools and wickedly fun ideas that we need. That was the primary draw from me.
Yeah, I think Shadowdark for me was obviously looking for a new home after the OGL debacle that we've all been through. Anyone who's a gamer has been doing it for a while probably knows what it is without getting into the deep. But Shadowdark had something that let Black Ballad kind of sing in this system. Shadowdark is settingless. It doesn't have one quite yet. We have one on the way, but there hasn't been one. And Black Ballad was perfect for that. I read through it originally saying, this is awesome. I like metal. I think the concept of the afterlife is a really cool thing to play in. And I thought Shadowdark was perfect for it because characters are quick to make. The rules are such a great foundational building block. Like, it's really weird to say that. Sometimes you get into the nitty gritty of building a game in a system and you get about halfway through and you realize you made a mistake. That's not what happens when you build in Shadowdark. In Shadowdark, you go, okay, here's the foundation for your house. What do you want to build today? And the rule system really lets you do that. And for him, he was like, can you make this happen? When we were talking, I was like, yeah, it's feasible. Give me a little bit of time to think about it. And the more I dug in, I was like, oh, we just need to pull things apart and give it its homes within the Shadowdark system. I like it because it's quick and easy. And I think it leans towards narrative, even though a lot of people think it's a dungeon crawling system. I don't think that's true. I think the tables, or as Chris McDowell says in like Mythic Bastion Land, spark tables, something that sparks ideas and interest and ways to lead your party through immersive gameplay. I think it's closer to what Rick and I have been doing for years in LARPing and in Vampire and the way we tell stories at our tables. So when I saw that there was no training wheels and you got to just kind of have fun with it, Rick's like, oh no, I get this now. Let's rock and roll. Like, how do we make this happen?
So you mentioned a little bit ago that using Shadowdark was your way of bringing Black Ballad to players at other tables, not necessarily 5e. Can you see yourself adapting this for other systems? And if so, have you thought about which ones?
I just ran it for Shadowrun the other day.
I One of my first runs was running even the Black Ballad original. I ran it for Clan Bali in Antarctica on an exploration for Vampire the Masquerade, right? I mean, there already is a like Pathfinder conversion on the website for the original Black Ballad. You just download it; it's free. We are going to do something different with Daggerheart that we're going to release in the near future. But what we found is that each of these things can tell a completely different story with the mechanics that are there and have a completely different vibe for them. Now, the main storyline and the plot line, once you're in the world and you're playing it, that campaign and that storyline and all the novels that we have and the soundtracks and the music, all of that stuff is usable for any game system. That is kind of one of the things that we intentionally did at Storytellers Forge. We're a bunch of novelists and world builders and campaign writers, right? So we can write things that fit into every other game system. And our mantra was we always wanted to write to plug into homebrew campaign worlds because we're kind of sick and tired of campaign books overwriting what house GMs are doing, right?
Oh, so much.
And so we write our books, structured them that way. And the feedback from the Black Ballad was great. And so we just found ways to put it into other systems. But when you do that, Shadowdark is the one that, thanks to Erik, it actually took it a step further than we were ever even attending during our design process. The book exists if you just play Shadowdark and you don't even want to play the Black Ballad. You have a book that now covers what happens, modes of play, new items, a reusable adventure when your party dies, a whole feedback system. It exists on its own. And if you want to dive deeper into the world of the Black Ballad, well, all of that material exists for you to go. And turning it into a conversion like this is not just a, hey, we took the book and we stripped it down and made put everything over here. It's actually its own thing with its own flavor and mode of play and type.
Yeah, I always said it was kind of like it's making a system, it's making a setting marry a system to have a kid, and that kid is, well, usually the book that you produce. I like wholeheartedly believe that not every setting is made for every system. We've watched over countless years that people try to force settings onto their favorite systems. Like, I loved PF1 and PF2, and I love playing those games, but there's certain set pieces that don't play as well in systems like that. Just like if I want to play a superhero game, I'm probably not going to pick up Shadowdark to run that. And I'm using obviously very extreme examples of this, But when we did this and we wanted to kind of make sure it could work for any system, we looked at what's available, and things like Daggerheart is great for storytelling. The one we're getting ready to do in March is great for Shadowdark, and that's something we're going to build upon as well, which I don't know how much we're going to talk about that yet. But you just need to make sure you're making the right marriage here. Like, don't put the ring on it until you know what you're doing. And that's kind of what this turned into, was like, is this the right marriage? Which took a lot of time. It was going to be 15 pages originally, and we knew the system was right, so now it's over 70 pages. Like, that's kind of how that worked. But I did run it for Cyberpunk, and I have ran it for Shadowdark, and I've ran it for 5e, and then someone I know wants me to run it for like Fate, for Fudge, so we'll see what happens.
Had a group of people that I ran it for at a convention, that 2 of the players came from 10 Candle games.
Yeah, I forgot about
Right.
that. I did Doom for it, so that was pretty fun.
They like, you could take a party from all these different game systems. One of the ways that we tell people to play Black Ballad sometimes at conventions is take your favorite characters from any campaign, or even those games that never finished. We all have those games that just die due to adult D&D scheduling.
Yep.
Take your favorite character from any game, bring them to the table, no matter what game system. And because there's a transition into the afterlife, it's purgatory. And so because there's that transition, everybody gets to start, from their own level.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I love to play a lot of different systems. I started learning later in life on Pathfinder 1e. The thing I love most is telling a story. And you tell different stories in different systems. So like, I love, that you're acknowledging that, but I also love that this is a setting that you could, whatever system you're playing, when you die, switch over to this. And you could then all switch to Shadowdark and try out this new system, for some people and put them in this. So that's really cool.
And I don't think a lot of supplement books have that portability, where you said you guys are novelists first, and that's not always something you see in campaign settings. You look,
No.
like you were saying, you see a campaign setting book and it only works with this set of rules for this reason. But that ability to take Black Ballad and apply it, you've listed at least 7 systems so far that you've played it in. And
Yeah.
that is really unique. And I think that's something really cool.
It was actually when I started writing, I was doing the Geek and Sundry bits, and I was doing all the press. And the first campaign book and even the second campaign book that I had written were sort of the proto thesis around that, because I was like, why don't I buy campaign books? And I realized why is they're always set from levels 4 to 6, right? Or this level range in this specific region, and everything is keyed to that, with a plot line that has no wiggle room, right, for house GMs, and the tempo of them wasn't even written in a way. Like, it's very great if that's the module that you are running, it's got you. So our books are a little bit thicker, and there's a little bit more wiggle room, but our studio, like 100% was our mantra that we wanted to make immersive TTRPGs in a box. And the Black Ballad was our first, the Dark Carnival was our second, and now we get to go back to the Black Ballad when it's got novels, a soundtrack, all of this stuff, and then be like, wait a minute, there's really something here. And this one is truly the first like sandbox, like, here you go.
Yeah, I was definitely inspired by Knave by Ben Milton recently. It is such a great toolbox book, even if you're, it really doesn't matter what fantasy system you're running. It's just perfect for that. And I wanted to kind of make something similar to that for Shadowdark. I've seen a lot of people make third-party supplement pieces for Shadowdark, but none of them were hitting the chord for me. A lot of them seemed like, here's a class, here's an ancestry. This was really one of those things where, like, all right, how do we give them a full toolbox? Like, what do we do to give them to be able to play in Black Ballad right now when they open this book? Like, how do we make that conversion for them simpler? We even have GM notes in it for like, or storyteller notes, where it's like, listen, if you're going to do a spell that's X level, here's how you convert it over from if you were playing in 5e, for example.
I also really love the threat that we get to have in the book, that you could be a storyteller and you can just throw the book on the table when you're in a regular hard boss fight,
Yep.
right? And if the players don't die, you just take the book
Yep.
back off the table,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you
We're
can
not going to Ravenloft. We're going here.
You can kind of just keep teasing your players with it until it happens.
That's great. One of the things, looking through the preview copy of the book you gave us, Eric, you called out that one of the keys to making this into a Shadowdark experience was that monsters. Like you called out that 1 to 20, now 1 to 10. What was the process of that like to try to make that fit and make that work?
There's a few things that people, I guess, have to remember first. When you step into something that is semi OSR, because while Shadowdark has a lot of 5e lineage in it, the advantage disadvantage rule set, at its core, they're talking about the steps of dungeon crawling, hex crawling, things we saw growing up in older editions, and now a lot of people are refinding, which is wonderful. All modes of play are worth the time. They all serve purpose. And monsters was the hard part because, like, okay, these mechanics had to be at least semi tight. You can't just make things up. Well, she already has some rules in the Shadowdark book, but they kind of cap at a certain level. And she has breakdowns when I say she, Kelsey, who's designing the original rules for us. And I knew I had to find a way to take his 20th level monsters from 5e and bring them over. So what I realized quickly is it's really Shadowdark's kind of just cut in half. Everything is 50% of what you saw in 5e. The big changes are damages are actually pretty high, but you're not adding your strength bonus to everything in Shadowdark. So I had to scale monsters down for that. And then hit points are also lower because in Shadowdark, you're rolling a d6 short of a dwarf. Nobody rerolls for their hit points. And you're not starting with max hit points, unless obviously you have like some house rule or canon that you're doing. But monsters reflect kind of the dangerous things that go bump in the night. And I wanted to make sure all the monsters from his world, which were wild, felt like that still in Shadowdark, yet not so much that you couldn't fight them. And number one, there's not a lot of big bads in Shadowdark. There's a few monsters in the core book. This one really gives you those kind of level 10 plus monsters because Shadowdark has monsters that go from 10 to 15. And then the thing to remember in OSR, it's not about balance. You're not killing things in Shadowdark to earn experience. And you're not supposed to really be doing that in Black Ballad. Half the things that Rick and his original team wrote was, you could fight this. It is a mistake, though, if you do this. And I wanted to make sure that was reflected in the rules. Like, yes, you can go fight this person, but I do not recommend it. I'll tell you out of the gate. And that's what it's there for. We've had some people already try to fight some of these and tests and stuff, and it goes sideways very fast when you mouth off to some of these things, but it's supposed to feel that way. And I wanted to make sure I did that, but made it manageable. So a lot of math, some of it's in the book for people to be able to do it themselves as well.
You mentioned monsters. Can you give us a little preview about what lies after death? Maybe pick a favorite monster to tell us about in this supplement?
Rick, do you got one?
I mean, the problem is
I have two.
I would default to okay. All right, so I'm just gonna give one that
It's tough when we make you pick your favorite child.
It's slightly spoilery, but it's tied to the main campaign, but she's iconic for it.
I knew you would take this one.
Yes. So Nixia is the goddess of resurrection, and she is actually the creator of the plane known as the Sunless Crossing. It's a purgatory realm that everybody gets to fall into if there's any chance in your world that you have a smidgen of being resurrected, right? Before you get sorted to your afterlife. And so she's in charge of this realm, and all of the backstories, all of the gods had agreed that after they find a solution for resurrection magic, because it was kind of ripping people out of heavens and hells and things like that, they would bring Nixia back from the dead because she had to sacrifice herself to make the realm. And well, like most gods, when a system is working, there's no need to find a solution. Well, this works. And so they kind of forgot about her.
Yeah, she was hard to make.
Until time goes on enough and enough people die, and she eventually starts remembering the promises that were forsaken. So our big bad in the Black Ballad, one of the potentials, there's multiple choice endings, right? You could have like 6 or 7 different iconic villains, but one of them that I really like as a potential quest that players could get to is fighting the goddess of resurrection herself.
Yeah. Rick's like, hey, can you make this goddess into Shadowdark? And I was like, are you out of your mind? So we did it. She's powerful. She's a level 18 creature. She's like dealing with a Tarask, if you want like a level comparison for things. She's a little bigger stat block than normal. And she's got numerous powers, numerous wings, probably some of my favorite art, but I actually think my favorite is the level 6. It's Rapex. It's got to be that crazy alien mind monster because you get to use this pretty early in a game. Like you can have some level 3, level 4 monsters encounter players encounter this and try, but it has an infinite form. It can grapple and hold as many objects and creatures as needed. So I don't care what size your party is. Everyone's getting picked up by this weird spherical mass of like claws and translucent skin with tentacles, and it's just monstrous. The art's also probably my favorite piece because it's so different than anything else in there. That's probably my favorite, I would think, out of them. Obviously I like the one he picked, but he picked it so I don't get to use it. And then the Swarm of Souls, which is the big bad in the adventure that's in this book. And for a mode of clarity, when Rick talks about the Black Ballad, he's talking a lot about the previous 5e one, which is the big story. Second Chances, this one is got an adventure in it for when you die, what happens. And that's what the adventure that's infinitely replayable in this is for.
Yeah, we cannot have a podcast episode with me not gushing about art. And the art in this supplement is stunning. The color, I love the way it was color coded. The art, the music, all of that. Like, I don't think we have a single episode where I don't gush about somebody's art. But yeah, I
Art's the first thing you
the art
see.
in this
I mean,
supplement.
it matters. And the color coding was early. Rick, when we did this, what, February? No, January last year we started talking about this.
Color was
And
the first thing you were like, black, you're like Shadowdark is black and white. They do this, and I go, great, but I still want to bring our own style
yeah,
to
I was
this.
like,
And you were like,
Sin
you
City.
know what? Good idea. Let's do this. Let's do it with this kind of
Yeah. I wanted to
aesthetics.
format it. And we didn't want to do tabs for the print version. We didn't want to put like thumb gauge, things on it. And we're talking about some of the print. Don't do it yet. He's looking for the print copy that we got. So we were looking at pages, and I was like, well, this color coded. Anytime you flip through a book, if the colors are right, you know what chapter you're in. And 70-something pages isn't huge, but it's still nice. Like I know Orange's Monsters done. It's clean, it's evocative, it does its job. And I'm a huge layout person. And the people on his team when I came on were like, yeah, the splash of color is a great idea. Let's rock and roll. And they ran with it. I think we probably had like 3 or 4 iterations of how the color was going to work. And then finally, we really liked the texture and what it turned out like.
The fun part about being in the TTRPG industry is when you actually have to make the books, which is something important to talk about. It's like our first project that we're going to crowdfunding on, and the book's already done. This isn't one that we're going to crowdfunding and then you have to wait a whole lot of time to get. We need help. We need help for the print run, but all of the manufacturing and getting everything set right to make the book beautiful and cool, and things like that. That's the process that we're in right now.
That's, I think, the perfect transition. So what can we expect from the Kickstarter?
We're doing something a little different. Rick and I went back and forth, and he's like, I want to test something. We really want to make this clean. And so there's no stretch goals. There's 0. That's the first thing out of the box, I'll say. And then Rick, we're talking right after backer kit closes, PDF goes out because it's done. We're just hyperlinking stuff right now and testing where we want hyperlinks to be.
Yeah, so we on the Kickstarter itself, which is March 17th, you can get the deluxe edition, which comes with the PDF. It comes with the full orchestral soundtrack. It comes with 2 like really metal, actually like 1-inch thick coins for like paying your way into the lands of the dead. These crossaway coins that are relevant, and so you get all of the assets. Plus, we had 40 minutes of narration done by voice actors for letters and moods set within the Black Ballad. So when your characters are playing the adventure and they go into the afterlife, you have like haunting things you can play in the background with speech and things like that with the Swarm of Souls and other elements. Yeah. So even though it's a small book, it's got a bunch of extra content around it to kind of keep with that immersive experience. And then the bigger tier is we have a player journal that comes with your like last will and testament, your maps, your grid lines, all the things like that. So you as a player can record your memories in the lands of the dead, because the adventure is meant to be reusable. You are meant to go in, encounter the story, go back to your campaign, and then when you die again, you get to come back again. And so the journal allows you to chronicle those moments, even though there might be some months before your characters revisit back. And then we have novels tied to our Black Ballad setting. So we're, of course, going to throw in Brian Fitzpatrick's To Slay a God novel because it fits with the Shadowdark one. Sometimes if you got to kill a god, you got to get yourself killed to finish the job. So that's the deluxe tier. There's add-ons. There's no stretch goals.
Yeah,
Right?
well, you got Crossway coins that come with that, the journal, everything else with the PDF, the print version for 75. The other's 30. The thing I would also say that's kind of cool about it is we do have a lot of add-ons you can do. Just if you really want to dive into the Black Ballad more than just Shadowdark, you'll be able to pick up the original version, like the 5e full campaigns, an option to pick up. Some of the stuff I made for Shadowdark called Breachers, which is my settings in it. There's other novels that you can grab as well. And there's some other, maybe some surprises we might be doing for add-ons. We're testing them in the background before we put them in, but there will be no stretch goals. It's just tell your friends, tell everybody, make sure we have enough people so we can do a really good print run and have more around for people who want it later. Because we want the Shadowdark family and crowd to be able to get in on what we already did for 5e back in the day, but just a new spin on it with more Shadowdarky tools for you.
Yeah, I really enjoy that too. We've gotten some really cool add-ons from RPG campaigns in the past, but I like the idea of the coins.
The coins are really important in the Black Ballad because money doesn't matter in the lands of the dead because you're dead. What matters is your memory and the time that you're stuck there. And the coins are symbolic of your place in line and how long you have to wait for. And people will gamble them to get ahead further in line. And really, what you're betting is your time that you're stuck in purgatory.
Even in the game modes too, you lose your memories as you kind of unravel every time you die while you're there. So it's all kind of thematically tied together, story tied together, and mechanically, and that's kind of the whole cycle. And with the coins, just I guess you use them as your luck tokens. Is what I think people are going to do.
Yeah, that's what you end up doing. Is here's your thing, or even in universe, like you've done something really cool. Here's a blessing from this person.
We saw a recent email from you all that you're teaming up with TTRPG in a Castle. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
This goes back to my Geek and Sundry days, but I was always a big fan of the uh, sort of like mega LARPs, right? I'm an old LARPer. I used to play Vampire the Masquerade all of the time. And as we grew up as adults, it became infinitely, infinitely harder to be able to play a regular campaign mode when you're in the industry and busy because we're always running around at Mach 18 with all of the conventions. And I wanted to be a player because I was tired of being the forever GM. So I decided to start booking myself these vacations where I would go to a really cool castle and, play an entire campaign all weekend. Sure enough, I go one time and then I end up as a storyteller, right? I don't even get to be a player, right? Just universally right into forever GM mode. And what we had found by doing it is there was no better way to really stress test an entire campaign the way that we write it than running it start to finish in like an Iron GM marathon mode. And the castle grounds are beautiful. RPG in a castle is different. It's not D&D in a castle. RPG in a castle lets you have other game systems, other styles, other creators brought to the forefront. And they're really big about bringing out the creators that are actually writing the campaigns to run them as storytellers as well.
Yeah.
And so you go to Bryn Mawr Castle in Pennsylvania. You spend a whole weekend in this beautiful like castle grounds with like the massive stained glass windows and the whole element. And we each get private rooms, and you play. Everything's included in like mead and food and stuff like that. But you actually play an entire campaign with your friends all weekend.
Yep.
Now, to spice ours up even more, our games that we're doing, we usually do special things as a studio for, because when you have the creators actually running the games at a special event, we can get inspired by your characters, the things that you do, and bake them into the world. We can have you guys be playtesters and get credits in the book. We can, involve you guys in the design process for what we're working on as we're playing through it. And that's one of the cool things that we can do at the ST Forge tables at RPG in the Castle. So we're now partnered up to do our castles. There's a June 19th one, which I'm running our upcoming project, which is Beyond Shadowdark. It's our later year project, and it's very near and dear to our studio's heart. And that's the Red Opera Reforged. We're finally bringing our book home. And But then we have August dates, there'll be October dates. Their goal is to get 5 dates a year, and we will keep bringing other game systems beyond just D&D to keep demoing and trying to expand people's audience.
No, Shadowdark is already one of the things that you want to bring there in general, just because it's a growing community. And
It's
more
already on the
people
June
playing
date.
it. Yeah, exactly.
It's
More
already
people
on the
playing
June
it, the
date.
better.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
So, one thing we like to do is ask for recommendations. So, give us anything in the wide world of tabletop, because we cover it all, anything that we and our listeners should check out. So, it could be a board game, TCG, TTRPG,
I have an
anything.
oldie but a goodie if you can get it anymore. I actually just talked about this with somebody else. Hold on. Buddy of mine is a anthropology major. Well, actually, doctorate in it now. Short story, random Gen Con there many years ago. Walked into a private party for the Were Cabbages, which was a writing society back in the day, ran by Lou Agresta and Rowan Barton. I was friends with one of the other writers there from Pathfinder, which was Brandon Hodge. I've been hanging out with him for years. It was PF1 era. I heard a voice that I haven't heard since high school. I grew up in Michigan. I have not seen this gentleman in, I probably was almost 20 years at that point, pretty close to it. And he's running a game called Fantasy. It is hands down one of my most fun systems for action-based drama using drama tokens. So I'll hold it up so that people who are in here can see. It has a screen, did all the stuff. He has other games as well, but it's called Fantasy. And I had a riot playing this the first time. And it was one of those times where, when you sit down and play a game and you get new mechanics, you're like, I could see using this in more systems. Like when Clocks first came out from Blades in the Dark or Apocalypse World, when you see that was an idea. The Escalation die came out. This had that vibe for me where I played something and I was like, I could use this in a lot of different games. And this is probably one of my little secret babies that is laying around.
All right. Mine is my near and dear one to the heart that I recommend so much that I actively try to carry it with me at conventions so I can get other people involved into it, is Eat the Reich.
Oh my
You
God.
are vampires coffin dropped into World War II to slaughter Hitler before Sunrise Soldier. And
Yeah.
I have a drinking game with it when I run it for one shots. I take a bunch of bottles of wine behind my ST screen, and I give all of my players empty glasses. And the only time my players at my table are allowed to drink is after they murder a fascist.
That's amazing. I ran that last New Year's, and we
I
did
love
something very
that.
similar with shots. It was Campari, and it got real rough.
Eat the Reich is so on brand for me as like a personal like creator. You see me at conventions, I have like this massive coat covered in patches and vampire symbols and things like that, and punch Nazis logos. So I'm pretty open about that. They made a game that was basically just coded to Rick and just gave me this book.
Like, here's your love letter. It's this many pages. Now get dropped in a coffin out of the sky.
I love that. I'm going to have to do some research so we can include some links in the show notes because both of those sound absolutely awesome and like a really good time. So, to wrap this up, if people want to find you on the web or social media, where can they find you and connect with you or your games?
Storytellersforge.com. Our website has all of our links to our Discord, our TikTok, our Instagram, social media. Otherwise, we're at ST Forge Studios everywhere else. Or you can just Google our names, Rick Hines and Erik Frankhouse. We will pop up with our own channels and streams and our own personal contents that we're doing. We're sort of public figures because we're content creators. So,
and I'm the only Erik Frankhouse in the world, so that's pretty easy. I will say we do have a fun little piece we're going to be doing here in February. Whenever this drops for everybody, we are going to be doing a little bit of a campaign for people. We all know what everyone's favorite players are. We all know what your favorite PC is. We want to know your favorite death in a game. And we're going to pick the top 3 and do something special with those characters that we like in an upcoming project. Find us, do Storytellers Forge, tag it wherever it is. We're going to have more on the campaign coming up going into this March season, but it's going to be tell us your favorite death. I don't care if it's a monster, an NPC, a player character, a tree, whatever it is that was your favorite thing in a game, because that's the stories that people should share for this campaign. How did you die?
And so we're going to totally throw some extra juice behind it and do something special with the best submissions we get.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
That's really cool. I know I have a favorite. almost death from our home campaign.
The GM didn't turn it to 11 to finish that job. What happened?
Haven't
here?
quite killed you yet.
To be fair, we were only like, what, level 1, level 2?
Yeah.
Pathfinder 2e characters, but yeah, I have a couple of favorite almost death. None of them are my character. They're all one specific character in our campaign, and if he's listening, he knows who he is.
Some of my favorite deaths are NPCs in games because I GM 99.99% of the time.
If you want to know more about this project, be sure to check out the Black Ballad Second Chances on Kickstarter, going live on March 17th. A second chance brings the Black Ballad setting into the award-winning Shadowdark system, providing tools to continue play beyond character death rather than ending a campaign at a total party kill. Search for the Black Ballad on Kickstarter or see our show notes for a direct link.
I'm your host, John Wiki, and you can find me on Threads and Instagram as John_Wiki_Games. That's WICKEE, and on Blue Sky as johnwiki.morecore.studio.
And I'm Stevie, and you can find me on social media as Stevies_Games.
20-Minute Tabletop is a Morecore Studios production. Theme song by Arthur Rowan, Morecore art by Sita Duncan. Do you want more tabletop gaming fun? Subscribe to 20-Minute Tabletop on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like what you hear? Leave us a review while you're there or tell a friend. Find out more on our website, 20mintabletop.com. That's the numbers 20mintabletop.com. Or connect with us on Threads and Instagram as @20mintabletop, @20mintabletop. Thank you and roll with fortune.
I was like, I'm about ready to enter like a 1990 sci-fi movie, and it's not gonna go well. Like,
That would be a fun
it's
game.
almost a Hal. It's like the Hal voice, man.
Yes, yeah.